So this is a huge milestone for Bitcoin to be used as collateral towards the American dream and maybe your first home. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, where we have a decision by the Trump administration to try to move to count crypto, also Bitcoin, of course, as federal mortgage asset. And this has different implications than one might think. Of course, we all think about the price action of Bitcoin, how adoption is actually happening faster than we think, especially when we didn't expect the US to embrace it that quickly from 2024 to 2025. So this can create very interesting ramifications. But first off, let's go towards the decision itself. Because so this is William Pulte, the U.S. Director of Federal Housing, the FHFA, and basically what he says is that he literally tweeted that. Keeping with President Trump's vision to make the United States the crypto capital of the world, today I ordered the great Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to prepare their businesses to count cryptocurrency as an asset for a mortgage. And this can have very interesting implications since Bitcoin was at the time. So if you see the actual price, the price action of Bitcoin, we had the impression, at least last year, it would be very safe to say that Bitcoin would just be a leverage play on a NASDAQ, right? So if you like to speculate on stocks, you can do that. But if you do Bitcoin, you just do the same thing with more volatility. And by the way, you are currently able to use US stocks as collateral for a loan in the United States, including mortgage. However, if we compare what's been happening with Bitcoin, especially in the last few months, it has been consistently decoupling from just being a local asset or a leverage American asset to become a global asset where you can have ramifications into wars that are happening between Russia and Ukraine, or the whole story about Iran after the attacks where the hash rate was actually down. So we still have to wait and see. So this is an asset that is being used more and more abroad, which characterizes it more and more as a global commodity. And that may change a lot of things because we are part of a network that is defended by China, is defended by Australia, is defended by Europe. You have the miners, you have the whole network that is growing, institutional, yeah, ETFs, ETPs, and all sorts of products, and also Visa saying that they will be adopting more and more tokenized stable coins, or to create a better approach to integrate stable coins into payments, and that also affects Bitcoin as well. So you see that more and more price action is not really that sensitive, even if you have everybody talking about a World War III on the or we are on the brink of a, a new collapse somewhere in any kind of wars. So this is really interesting because we are at a 108. It doesn't mean that it's going to stay like that, but volatility is slowly decreasing over time. But and again, by becoming a global asset, you have interesting ramifications that happen inside of the United States. But before we dive into those, of course, it's great to understand every single video to give new tools so you can understand how liquidity plays onto Bitcoin and how it's being used. But how can I act on it? Many people ask us that, and this is why we have the BI report, so the Bitcoin Intelligence Report, and now we have a brand new dashboard, and we just did our latest expert video analysis. So I was happy to collaborate with Sina and also with Wizard as well, talking about everything that affects not only Bitcoin but the whole market. You want to understand how you can truly act on it with actionable information. This is really the place to go. So we put many hours into it, and I hope you like our latest release as well. We do those weekly, so it's a pleasure to contribute to this report, and we really put a lot of good information over there. So if you want to have a look, just click on the link on the description below, and of course, make sure to use the promo code that's also on the description for 5% off. All right, so let's come back to the price action here. You see that more and more Bitcoin is presenting itself as a global commodity, as a collateral, and it doesn't really matter your opinion, my opinion about it. Macroeconomically speaking, it is being like a sponge towards liquidity, like gold, and in the even Michael Howell talks a lot about that, how the breakdown of the actual composition of Bitcoin price action is truly like a global liquidity barometer, and also a little bit of investor risk appetite, but so are stocks. And based on the fact that it's taking the shape of being a true commodity, that creates a lot of support onto the price. Actually, we talked about that as well. Cena made a nice case as well with Wizard on that matter, that we do have a strong support for that. And I would like to give you this idea. So you have the US system, which was pretty interesting to be adopting it, so to embrace it so much, because normally in America you don't really feel the need for any kind of asset like that, except for the fact that housing is so unattainable or unaffordable for most people. But outside of the United States, you have FX risk, you have geopolitical risk, you don't have such a stable banking system or regulated banking system that you have in the US. So the US doing this kind of those kinds of movements, that gives a lot of tailwinds for more institutional adoption abroad, because of uh, how different and regulated the United States banking system is, especially with crypto, right? You have to have Binance, for example, needs to have two different entities just to be able to operate in the United States, like KYC and all of that. And Bitcoin being used that way as a true global commodity actually gives a lot of support to present itself more and more as a safer and safer collateral to be used to those transactions. And also the fact that US banks are now able to have Bitcoin in custody. So a lot of things are really changing. And at the other side of the equation, so this is all I talked about demand, right? This is one side of the equation, but what about supply? And that's where the magic comes in. It doesn't change. It's completely inelastic. So it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter who announces the next big move on Bitcoin becoming a collateral. It just cannot be more than 3 point something Bitcoin per block, right? So it does not change. Is literally what has been happening so far. So this is really interesting, especially when we have such uncertain times with geopolitical conflicts and the price is not moving. We're still bullish. Of course, it is a lot of a liquidity play, and it's very dependent on liquidity. If we have a liquidity crush, for sure, Bitcoin is going to be affected based on this 40%. Uh, uh, the 40% cut here on what influences Bitcoin price, but still, this also affects stocks. This also affects many other 401ks in the United States as well. I was working with 401ks for a while, so I know exactly what how most Americans think about that. And especially in the United States, where the American dream uh, has been really postponed for many people. So, especially millennials, Gen Z, and so on a K shaped economy where you have to have those assets in the first place. Otherwise, you cannot do the same thing that boomers did, that our parents or grandparents. Now maybe we can see a way for them to actually catch up. And even though and using it as a collateral is also presents tax benefits, since you're not going to be selling the assets. So literally one of the main reasons why Michael Saylor, for example, was one of the first people to actually respond to that tweet by William Poulter to say, "Look, this is a great step into the right direction." Of course, many people would claim that we should be using it more as a currency and not as a collateral or something to circulate. Of course, it's up to debate, but I'm here to talk mostly on what Bitcoin is actually being used right now, and this is pretty exciting. So let's see what the next steps will be. If it so it's not yet effective. So some adaptations are going to be needed for the infrastructure, but this is a huge step forward into maybe a global asset and one of the biggest or most important collateral assets in the future.